Before we start, comment on which city you are watching this video from. Let's move on to our daily reflection. Have you ever noticed how there are people who, just by walking into a room, seem to instantly change the energy of the place? It's as if, invisibly, almost supernaturally, everyone knows that this person is not there to be ignored, underestimated, or relegated to the background. And at the same time, there are those who spend their entire lives trying to be seen, noticed, desperately trying to be valued, and yet, they remain invisible. How many times have you felt this way, watching other people receive respect, opportunities, recognition, while asking yourself, why is this different for me? What do they have that I don't? What if I told you that the answer is not in appearance, money, status, or what you do, but in what you emanate? Napoleon Hill, in his career studying the world's most influential and successful men and women, discovered something that would forever change our understanding of success, respect, and most of all, the invisible power that shapes how the world perceives us. He discovered that there is a silent law, a barely perceptible frequency, that determines who will be seen, heard, and respected, and who will be discarded, ignored, and undervalued. This is not a theory, it is a science. The science of the mind, of energy, and of personal vibration. You may think this is mysticism or a matter of luck, but the truth is brutal. The world does not treat you as you deserve, it treats you exactly as you treat yourself. And, believe me, the universe does not negotiate with those who doubt themselves. There is a hidden code, a kind of psychological algorithm that governs all human interactions. A code that, when deciphered, immediately places you in a position of respect, influence, and personal power. And if you do not understand it, it condemns you to a life of frustration, submission, and emptiness. How many times have you tried to try harder, to give more, to be more available, more kind, more understanding, in the hopes that people will finally value you the way you know, deep down, that you deserve? And how many times has that effort resulted only in more exhaustion, more devaluation, more loneliness? The question that resonates is simple, yet haunting. Why are some people naturally respected, while others have to beg for recognition? And the answer, according to Napoleon Hill, lies in the dominant state of mind. Because, yes, the way you perceive yourself creates the lens through which the entire world sees you. Hill stated that everything starts in the mind, and that the mind, untrained, becomes a trap, an invisible prison that keeps you imprisoned by patterns that you don't even know you carry within yourself. And here is the first key that few know. The world does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you think you are. You may desire respect, love, validation, recognition, but if, deep down, you perceive yourself as small, fragile, needy, dependent on the approval of others, that is exactly how the world will respond to you. It sounds cruel, doesn't it? But it's the truth that sets you free. Because if you're the one creating that perception, then you're the one who can change it. Hill learned, over decades of interviewing billionaires, presidents, inventors, and geniuses, that they all had one thing in common: a presence, a quiet conviction, an authority that needed no explanation or justification. It was simply felt. They didn't have to shout to be heard. They didn't have to brag to be noticed. They simply knew who they were. And that certainty, that inner vibrancy, shaped absolutely everything around them. And here comes one of Hill's most shocking discoveries. Words have power, but not just any words. There are 3 specific words that act as a kind of energetic code. 3 words that, when spoken with true conviction, instantly change the way others see, treat, and perceive you. And no, it's not a trick of the tongue. It's a shift in your psyche. A declaration of sovereignty, self-control, and mastery over your own mind. But before I explain what these 3 words mean, you need to understand something even deeper. Because these words, by themselves, without the right mindset, are empty. It's like trying to use a key without having the right door. And this is where we enter the most powerful field of applied psychology, something that Hill called the absolute mastery of mind over matter. Without it, nothing changes. With it, everything changes. Think about it. How many times in your life have you found yourself in situations where you clearly deserved more respect, more consideration, more recognition, and yet, people acted as if you were invisible, disposable, irrelevant? And each time this happened, something inside you broke a little more. A part of you asked, "What's wrong with me?" And without realizing it, you began to lower your standards, to accept crumbs, to settle for less, in the hope that maybe, one day, people would realize your worth. But Hill made one thing very clear: the world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you demand, based on who you have become inside. This means that as long as you vibrate at the frequency of doubt, insecurity, and lack, the universe will respond with exactly the experiences that reinforce that vibration. It's a vicious cycle, yes, but it's also a liberating one. Because if you created this cycle, you can break it, and that's where the 3 words that Hill says can instantly break this cycle come into play. Words that represent a shift in your vibrational field, your psyche, and your identity structure. When you say, with conviction, looking into the eyes of someone who is trying to belittle you, provoke you, ignore you, or destabilize you, "I don't care," you're not just saying that to the other person. You're saying it to the entire energy field around you. You're saying to the universe, "I'm not going to play this game anymore." These words are more than just a sound. They are an energetic signature, a declaration that you are no longer available to what diminishes you. And the moment you say them, it's not just the other person who feels them. It's as if the whole reality, the whole vibration around you, rearranges itself to reflect you differently. But Hill also warned, no word has power without conviction, and conviction only comes from an inner state. That's why it's not enough to just say it. You have to be it. You have to embody that frequency, that inner decision that from now on, you will not trade your peace, your dignity, your energy, for anything or anyone. And here comes the first internal micro-conflict, because perhaps a part of you, accustomed to pleasing, justifying, explaining, begging for affection and validation, begins to scream, to resist, to say, "But what if I lose this person? What if I'm alone? What if they reject me even more?" And this is where Hill would be relentless, because he said, everything you fear losing controls you, and everything that controls you enslaves you. So if your fear of losing is greater than your desire to stand out, then you will continue to be a slave to this cycle. But, if at that moment you take a deep breath, look your own shadow in the eye, and decide that you no longer accept living in fear, then you take a quantum leap in your consciousness. You move from the state of victim to the state of creator. And at that very moment, respect begins to manifest. Because respect does not come from others. Respect comes from within. It is a vibration, a frequency, a decision. And that is exactly what Napoleon Hill taught, that the mind, when mastered, becomes the most powerful force in the universe. But when left undisciplined, it becomes its greatest tormentor. So now I ask you, are you willing to take control of your own mind? Because if the answer is yes, get ready. Because in the next level of this journey, we will expose the most insidious enemy that has ever existed. A silent enemy, invisible, and that lives inside your own mind. And if you do not learn to identify it and destroy it, it will continue to steal your power, your peace, and your respect, without you even realizing it. Are you ready? Because the next revelation may be uncomfortable. But it promises to free you from absolutely everything that has made you feel small until now. There is a type of prison that cannot be seen, touched, or perceived. An invisible and silent prison that imprisons millions of people every day, without them even realizing it. It is a cell without locks, walls, or bars. And yet, it is the safest, most efficient and devastating that has ever existed. Napoleon Hill, in his studies on human behavior and the science of success, discovered that this prison has a name. It will be called reactivity. And believe me, until you break these invisible chains, you will continue to live a life where respect, recognition, and personal fulfillment will always be distant and unattainable mirages that will elude you just when you need them most. But the scariest thing is not knowing that this prison exists. The scariest thing is knowing that, most of the time, we are the ones who turn the key that locks this cell. Because reactivity does not come from outside. It is born from within. It is a silent hijacking of your own mind. And the more you react, the more you lose control. The more you give away your power. The more you allow any person, any situation, any circumstance to decide for you who you are, what you feel, and how you should live. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, full of good intentions. You decide that today will be different. That today you will stay calm, take care of your energy, protect your peace. But all it takes is one malicious message, one cruel comment, one veiled criticism, one subtle rejection, and in seconds, everything falls apart. Your mood changes, your energy drops, your mind goes into overdrive, and before you know it, you have become a puppet of other people's emotions. You find yourself responding, justifying yourself, defending yourself, trying to prove something to someone who, deep down, doesn't even deserve your attention. And here's the cruelest part of this game. Every time you react, you're training the world to test you again. Every time you justify yourself, you're communicating that your validation comes from outside. And as Hill said, what you tolerate repeats itself. What you cultivate grows. Your life, your people, your surroundings, everything begins to reflect the very weakness you're unconsciously transmitting. You may not realize it, but there are eyes watching you every time you lose control. There are people who quickly learn which buttons to push to make you fall apart. You know that coworker who knows exactly what to say to make you angry. That family member who always finds a way to make you feel inferior. That partner, that friend, that boss. They're all testing you, consciously or unconsciously. And the more you react, the more you confirm that you're not in control. And if you think that's an exaggeration, let me tell you a story. A woman we'll call Laura once told me about the crazy cycle she lived in at work. Laura was extremely competent, dedicated, and hardworking, but there was something that always seemed to slip through her fingers. No matter how hard she tried, it was as if she was never appreciated enough. There was always a sarcastic comment, a joke, a disapproving look from her colleagues, or even her boss. And of course, she reacted. She fought back. She defended herself. She tried to explain. She tried to prove that she wasn't who they said she was. And each time she did, she found that, far from gaining respect, the teasing only increased. The environment became more and more hostile, more toxic, more oppressive, until one day she understood. It wasn't about what other people did. It was about what she allowed. It was about how she responded. At that moment, she decided to try something simple, but absolutely revolutionary. The next time someone provoked her, she would simply not react. She wouldn't explain. She wouldn't defend herself. She would simply look at them, stand her ground, and in a firm, calm voice, she would reply, "I don't care." The effect was immediate. The silence that filled the room seemed almost palpable. Eyes met, expressions changed. For the first time, she realized something she had never felt before. The power had returned. And it wasn't because others had changed. It was because she had changed. She understood, in practice, what Napoleon Hill had always taught. He who controls his reactions, controls his reality. But here's a second problem. Because when you start doing this, a part of you, the part that has been conditioned since childhood to seek acceptance, to justify yourself, to be good, to be kind, to be understanding, starts screaming inside your head. It's almost like a voice is saying, "But if I don't respond, they'll think I'm weak, that I'm running away, that I don't care, that I've accepted." And that's the trap. Because your mind has been trained to believe that reacting is a sign of strength, when in fact, reacting is, more often than not, the clearest confirmation that you are vulnerable, unbalanced. Napoleon Hill warned. A mind uncontrolled becomes the property of whoever wants to control it. And that's exactly what happens when you live in reactive mode. You become the emotional property of whoever is testing you. Without realizing it, you hand over the remote control of your life to someone who knows how to push the right buttons. Think about it. How many times, in the last few weeks alone, have you wasted hours, or even days, mentally reliving an argument, imagining responses you should have given, rehearsing dialogues that never happened? How many times have you been robbed of sleep, your productivity destroyed, your peace shattered, simply because someone, with a few words, took over your mind and dragged you into a realm of pain, anger, and frustration? And here is the most brutal, but also the most liberating truth. It is not people who make you suffer. It is your reaction to them that makes you suffer. The problem is never what they say. The problem is what you do internally with what they say. Now imagine another scenario. Imagine that from this day forward, absolutely no one, not criticism, not rejection, not provocation, can pull you away from your center. Imagine yourself walking through life, through your environment, through your relationships, with a presence so solid, so firm, so sure, that there is simply no room for others to destabilize you. Imagine yourself looking into the eyes of those who try to belittle you and with a slight smile, replying, "I don't care. and moving forward. It's that simple. No anger, pain, no resistance. Just the full awareness that you were no longer negotiating your peace, your energy, or your worth. What do you think would start to happen? Those who were testing you would stop doing so. Those who underestimated you would start to see you differently. And most importantly, those who didn't deserve you would start to spontaneously pull away, because their vibration no longer allows that kind of energy around them. And Napoleon Hill said, the universe responds unerringly to the dominant state of mind of each individual. If your state of mind is reactive, insecure, and vulnerable, the universe will send you more experiences to confirm that vibration. If your state of mind is solid, centered, and unshakable, the universe will respond by elevating the experiences, relationships, and opportunities that come your way. And here comes the most fascinating point of all. Because when you start practicing this new pattern, something changes not only in others, but above all in yourself. You start to see yourself differently. You start, for the first time, to experience the taste of true freedom. Because freedom is not doing what you want. Freedom is no longer being a slave to the opinions, judgments, criticism, looks, or rejection of others. But there's one caveat that Hill wanted to make clear. At first, your mind will resist. It will try to sabotage you. It will want to pull you back into your old patterns. That's normal. Because the mind doesn't like the unknown. It prefers familiar pain to unfamiliar pleasure. That's why the first few times you say, I don't care, everything inside you will shake. Your body will react. Your palms may sweat. Your heart may race. Because you're breaking a pattern that's been in place for years, maybe decades. But if you persist, if you persevere, something magical will start to happen. You'll start to remember who you are. And most importantly, you'll start to notice who never deserved access to your inner world. And if you've come this far, it's a sign that a part of you has already understood that there's no going back. Because, after seeing this prison, you can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. And now comes the question that Napoleon Hill would ask himself if he were here. In front of you, do you prefer to continue reacting, being a slave to your own mind? Or are you ready to become its master? If your answer is yes, get ready. Because there is a force even more insidious than reactivity. A silent, stealthy force that disguises itself as love, affection, security, but which, in reality, is the heaviest chain that keeps you trapped in suffering, pain, and stagnation. And that is precisely what we will talk about in the next stage of this journey. And, believe me, what you are about to discover may be uncomfortable, it may be disturbing, but you have the power to free yourself from everything that has ever made you feel small, insufficient, and invisible. Hill was categorical when he stated, the greatest weakness of human beings is the attachment to that which no longer serves them, simply out of fear of facing the unknown. And herein lies one of the greatest robbers of your life energy. You cling not only to people, but also to ideas, patterns, old versions of yourself, and illusions that have expired. Every time you insist on holding on to that which you should let go of, you are silently affirming to the universe, I do not believe I deserve it anymore. And the universe, governed by the law of correspondence, simply confirms your belief. Napoleon Hill called this unconscious self-sabotage. The inability to let go keeps you chained to cycles of suffering, to relationships that drain you, to jobs that slowly kill you, to friendships that only exist when you sacrifice yourself. But here is the key. As Hill taught, when you raise your consciousness and declare, I am no longer interested in carrying this around with me, you are not just letting go, you are freeing yourself. But there is a more sophisticated principle at work, a skill that not only liberates you, but transforms you into a magnetic, enigmatic, and totally respected being. And that is what Napoleon Hill wants to talk to you about now. Few understood the true meaning of silence like Napoleon Hill. He taught that silence is not absence, but amplified presence. Those who control their words control their reality. Hill observed that the most successful and respected men he interviewed had one thing in common. They did not reveal their plans in advance. They did not explain their moves. And above all, they did not justify themselves. Because those who explain, submit. Silence is a strategy of power. Those who speak less, observe more. Those who observe more, understand the hidden game behind words, and perceive the invisible movements between the lines of life. Imagine this. Someone is pressuring you, trying to get a reaction, information, or explanation from you. And you, firm, erect, aware of your own value, simply respond, "I'm not interested in sharing that," and silence. The other person's bewilderment is not just psychological, it is energetic. It is as if, in that moment, you have taken control not only of the conversation, but of the entire power dynamic. Hill always said, "What others don't know about you ... is exactly what keeps you strong." But there's an even deeper layer you need to access, a principle that changes everything. And that's what you're about to discover. Napoleon Hill left a lesson that few have truly understood. Those who do not prioritize themselves will be condemned to live as an extra in the story of others. The world has been programmed to make you believe that prioritizing yourself is selfish. But this is a lie created to keep you submissive, fragile, and manipulable. Hill argued that self-love is not just an emotional act, but an intellectual and strategic decision. It is an irrevocable commitment to your own worth. Every time you accept crumbs, every time you say yes when you really mean no, every time you sacrifice yourself to fit into spaces that were not made for you ... you are declaring to the universe that you are not even a priority to yourself. And, as Hill taught us, the universe is a mirror. What you accept ... multiplies. And this is where these three words gain their maximum expression. I am not interested in sacrificing myself to be accepted. Those who do not understand this do not deserve to be in your life. And when you understand this, Letitia, something changes in your vibration. Your energy increases. People start to see you differently. And suddenly, what seemed unattainable starts to seek you out. But there is a final stage, a state where you are not only respected, but become absolutely unattainable. And that is exactly where Napoleon Hill is taking you now. When a person understands, not intellectually but viscerally, that his mind is the source, center, and creative field of his entire reality, he rises to a state where he simply can no longer ignore it. Napoleon Hill called this the inner mind, a state where you stop being guided by circumstances and begin to shape your own reality. At this level, social dynamics change. You don't chase anyone. You don't beg for love, attention, or respect. You emanate, you attract, you become your own magnet. And at this level, the three words cease to be just a defense and become your mantra of existence. I am not interested in living below my worth. At this point, those who have ignored you begin to seek you out. Those who have underestimated you now wonder how they lost you. And those who once believed they could manipulate you simply realize that they are no longer living on the same frequency. Hill often said, the mind that expands to a new level of consciousness never returns to its original size. And if this video moved you, awakened you, repositioned you in life ... comment here. I am my own center of power. Share this message with those you love, because when you change, everything changes, and the world finally starts to treat you exactly as you always deserved to be treated.